Well, we're looking now at the role that ratings agencies play. They can change the way investors look at a company or even a country. One downgrade, an entity can go from a potential investment into an avoid situation. Conrad Royce from Standard & Poor's joins us to discuss the role of the agencies. Good morning to you, Conrad. Thanks for joining us. I understand you're not speaking for all the agencies, but you do represent one of them, Standard & Poor's. And what provoked our discussion this morning was comments by Stephen Friedman, the analyst professor at University of Johannesburg and Rhodes University, saying that we shouldn't take the ratings agencies seriously. And in fact, he had some strong words to say, and I'll quote one of them. He said, I told Treasury I will not be available to speak to these agencies anymore. My reason is simple. They clearly do not listen to a word I say because they have made up their minds before the interview. So first of all, your reaction to that allegation.
Yeah, first of all, good morning again. And personally and professionally, I very much appreciate Professor Friedman, and we've always had very good discussions with him in the past, and I regret the judgment call he's making here. We certainly always valued his input to our decision, and when we come to a country to do our due diligence and have meetings with government and other stakeholders, we do come with an open mind. We come to gather information, and the voice of someone like Professor Friedman is certainly one of the voices we take as input, and whether it's entirely reflected in the outcome of our rating decision is a different matter, but it's certainly valued input, and again, I regret that he has come to that decision.
Well, joining us now is Professor Stephen Friedman. He's director at the Centre for the Study of Democracy at Rhodes University, also attached to the University of Johannesburg. Morning, Stephen.
Morning.
You just came a little bit late, so I put one of your comments that you made about the agencies to Conrad. Now, perhaps just say where this is coming from, where your view that I quoted your comment that you said to Treasury you're not going to be available anymore. And your view is that they're not really interested in seriously understanding what's going on.
Yeah, that's correct, David. Look, it's based on my experiences during the last round of ratings, and me talking to people who'd also been involved in the process. And really, you know, I'll give you a couple of examples of what led to this decision. I mean, first of all, a representative of one of the rating agencies, before the interview started, walked in, gave a long analysis of how South Africa was a disaster, and then asked for an opinion. Well, clearly he'd made up his mind, so why was he asking for an opinion? The second one, which I found interesting, was that I mentioned to one of the agencies, and seeing that Conrad Royce is here, I might as well announce finally which agency it was, Standard & Poor's, that I had information, research information, which may be of interest to them, which indicated that things that they were saying in the interview were refuted by research. The person who was there said, "Oh, that's very interesting, will you send it to us?" And it occurred to me afterwards, because I was suspicious of the process, if he was interested, he'd actually check up. He'd actually give me a call. Well, the research is still sitting in my computer. Standard & Poor's is welcome to it any time, but 3 months after the interview, they haven't shown any interest in the evidence. I think that it's quite clear to me from the tone of the interviews, from the way in which people respond to what you say, that they're not listening. I mean, as I said...
And you're talking about all three of the US-based...
Yes, correct. All three, correct, yes. Yeah. And therefore, my attitude is they can come to any conclusion they want. We can have a debate about whether the conclusion is justified or not, but I'm not complaining about the conclusions. I'm saying that I don't think that the process is a valid process, and obviously nobody's going to talk to other people if they're not listening.
Stephen, you mentioned here that your opinions are based on your interactions with the ratings agencies over the last year or so. Has this situation always been the case, or was it different from years
I think it's got worse. I think it's got worse for two reasons. I mean, I think that the pressure on the rating agencies has increased over the last few years. Remember, which we don't talk about in South Africa, let's be very blunt, they messed up in the US in 2008. They're being sued in some places. There was a lot of fallout from that. I think they've been covering their backs ever since because of that. And I think also the rating agencies feed off negative domestic sentiment. We South Africans Americans always quote the rating agencies as though they're independent agencies. They're actually feeding back what local business is saying, and that's become more negative. Now, that's fine. If you want to stand up in public and say local business is more negative, that's an important fact. But don't present it as an independent finding by people who are totally unconnected to local development.
Conrad, let's get back to you in Cape Town. I think there are two issues that are emerging here. The one is the process that Stephen refers to. So perhaps you can just talk a little bit about the integrity of your process. He's alleging that it isn't there, that integrity, or largely isn't there. And secondly, his point about feeding off local business. Isn't there a danger that you get a circularity? So the ratings agency talks to the local business or academics or experts who then in turn see their views reflected by the ratings agency, which confirms their views. And so whether it's pessimistic or optimistic, you have this sort of self-confirming circle.
First, again, I regret to hear what Stephen is saying, again, like I said earlier, we certainly always appreciated his input. But let's come back to the process. I think the process is a very sort of well-tested and rehearsed process. We do meet stakeholders from all sorts of backgrounds in the economy. We do meet government, we do meet central banks. And basically there is a whole sort of a vast range of input that goes and data that goes into our decision. The decision is made by an experienced committee, and again the last thing I would want to believe, and I've been in this business for about 20 years, that we come to a country with a pre-manufactured opinion. That certainly is not the case, and that's why we have this sort of like one-on-one conversations. That's why we come to a country to really get this kind of first-hand experience. So I couldn't disagree more strongly with what Stephen has to say.
Now, what about the point of the circularity? Yeah, the self-reinforcing views. Then people talk to people who then confirm what they've just said.
Again, I would go back to the fact that we want to meet, and we do meet, a variety of people. So it's not a sort of a self-feeding sort of like negative circular argument we are latching on. You do hear everything from like very positive to very negative points of view when you are in a given country. We do meet media, we do meet private sector, we do meet the official sector. We do meet sort of independent viewers like Stephen. We have meetings with embassies and the likes of the IMF and the World Bank. So again, my point is, you want to have a sort of a wide range of input to be able to kind of sift through this type of input and make sure that you are not being influenced by one particular voice.
Stephen, you've heard Conrad's comments there that he wants input from a variety of people. What needs to change here to solve the problem, to ensure that ratings agencies don't enter this process with, as you mentioned, already formed opinions?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to change is not in the rating agencies. I think what needs to change is in our reaction to the rating agencies. I think we need to hold them to account. I think that there's, unfortunately, an attitude in South Africa which suggests that the rating agencies are somehow perfect, that they're entirely independent. And I think we ought to hold them to account. I think one of the reasons why we don't hold them to account is precisely the point that David has made earlier. Some people don't want to hold them to account because it's far easier to funnel. It's a ventriloquist effect in a sense. You're funneling your opinion through the rating agency. I'll give you a specific example. I spoke to a senior economist at one of the major financial houses who told me very proudly that he'd told the rating agencies that they'd better downgrade South Africa in order to teach the government a lesson. Now, he would never say that in public because it would reflect badly on his company. He can say that to the rating agency and he can then you say, look, it's just an entirely independent outside source. So I think that we need to get away from that. I think we need to look very carefully at how they reach their findings and I think we need a serious debate on their findings. Obviously, the message to the agencies is that, you know, whatever Conrad has said, my personal experience indicates that people are not listening to particular sorts of opinions, and clearly the obvious answer is they need to listen to all opinions.
Conrad, Stephen did refer to the 2008, the US, the subprime issues, and I think the ratings agencies came in for a lot of stick then because their job is to warn about risk, and they failed to pick that one up. Would you say from the inside of an agency that you're still battling a credibility issue there? Because there certainly was a credibility issue.
Look, first let me sort of come back to the South African debate. And I think one great thing and about rating agencies in South Africa, one great thing about South Africa is that we have a lively debate. We are one voice among many voices here, and that's the way we see our role. We want to add value to the debate, and we don't want to be the one voice that, that basically is taken into account as a single voice. And I think South Africa is a great example where there is a lively debate about things like ratings, about creditworthiness, and that's exactly the way it should be, that we are one voice and we do add value as such, and we are not the one that determines the, an investment decision alone. Now back to 2008 and the subprime crisis. Yes, and we as a firm, as a rating agency, we have said it many times, when it comes to subprime, when it comes to the specific sort of section or space of structured finance securitization ratings, in the US, our ratings did not perform well. We did adjust to a great deal. We looked at our methodology, we looked at our criteria. We have become, also because of the events of 2007, 2008, we have become a regulated industry, which we as a company appreciate and recognize that this certainly also helped us to regain some of the credibility lost in a particular segment of the analysis. But again, 2008 was about a very specific area of our analysis. Other parts of our business, whether it comes to corporate ratings, bank ratings, sovereign ratings, they did hold up well throughout the whole crisis. It was the problem was very specific. It was a big problem, but very specific in the area of securitization, in the area of subprime.
Mm. Stephen, you heard Conrad mentioning the mistake, the error that took place back in 2008. To avoid a situation like this occurring in future, who needs to keep the ratings agencies in check?
Well, I think we all do, but I think part of the problem, you know, Conrad says they're just one voice among many. Unfortunately, they're not just one voice among many.
And they determine interest rates, payment rates, and things like that.
And you see the biggest problem, which I really think people need to look at, is you've got major hedge funds and other investment vehicles around the world who simply, unfortunately, don't have the time to make considered investment decisions all over the world. So what they do, and this is very well known, there's a computer function which, if the rating agencies downgrade you, simply switches off the investment. Now that is enormous power. Obviously we all wish it was different. The problem is that, as I say, if you're moving money all around the world in that sense, in the ideal world they should all send experts out here and make their own investment decisions. They don't, and that means that the power of the agencies is a very important problem.
Well, I'm afraid we'll have to end it. This is something we must return to. I want to ask you quickly, Stephen, what does Conrad Royce have to do to make you talk to him again?
Well, I would like some evidence that people are actually listening. I mean, for a start, the research is still available. They can call me any time and I'll send it to them.
And Conrad, I know you've been under pressure, and I remember with the medium-term budget policy statement, on one of the interviews, the Minister of Finance said, you were referred to, and the Minister of Finance said, well, why does he live here if that's what he thinks of the country? So you've got to have a thick skin, haven't you?
Well, first, I'd like to thank Stephen for the offer, and we'll certainly be in touch. And again, I think the Minister referred to that we are always looking at South Africa in a negative way. I really don't think it is that way. And we have a fairly balanced view on South Africa. Sadly, sometimes the negative sort of news flow certainly was overwhelming, but hopefully that will change in due course.